Okay, let's talk about something huge. With so many of us swiping right on dating apps, we have to ask a pretty serious question. Are these apps actually helping us find lasting love, or are they setting us up for heartbreak? The science on this is wild and honestly, super contradictory. So let's just dive right into the central mystery.
So yeah, this is the big one. And look, this is not just some fun thought experiment. With the vast majority of new relationships now starting online, the answer to this question, well, it changes pretty much everything about how we go about building our most important human connections.
And when I say vast majority, I am not kidding. Check this out. By 2017, a full 50%, half of all new couples were meeting online. This isn't some niche little trend anymore. This is the new normal. It's completely rewritten the rules for how we find love.
But to really get your head around the scale of this, you've got to see just how fast this all went down. You know, the rise of digital dating wasn't some slow, gradual shift. No, this was an absolute explosion.
Okay, what's so wild about this is the sheer acceleration. Just look at that jump. In 1998, it's a tiny 2%. A decade later, it jumps to 20%. And then, bam, it skyrockets to 50% by 2017. This is so much more than a change in technology. It's a massive shift in our social fabric.
But here's where the story gets really juicy. And honestly, a little complicated. Because as soon as researchers started digging into this, they started coming up with some wildly different answers. And that sets up the big mystery we're going to try and solve today.
I mean, how can both of these things be true? On one hand, you've got this massive study from 2012 that says, hey, couples who meet online are happier. And they divorce less. Sounds great, right? But then a more recent study from 2023 finds the complete opposite, that they have lower quality marriages and they're less stable. It makes no sense. It's a total contradiction.
Okay, so this is where we put on our detective hats. Because the answer here isn't as simple as one study being right and the other one being wrong. Nah, the truth is hiding in the details. And the very first clue, well, it changes the entire game.
And here it is. The critical piece of the puzzle is that lumping all online dating into one big category is a huge mistake. The specific website, the app you use, it matters a lot. Not all digital meet-cutes are created equal. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. I mean, look at eHarmony, a site that's all about deep compatibility. Couples from there score significantly higher in satisfaction than the average for couples who met offline. But then you look at something like Old School Chat Rooms, also an online venue, and they actually score lower.
This finding from the research really just nails it. It's basically saying that the gap between a good online platform and a bad one is way bigger than the gap between online and offline in general. The takeaway is crystal clear. Which platform you choose is a much bigger deal than just the simple fact of meeting online.
Okay, so let's move on to our second major clue, and this one is a biggie. It's not just about who you know, but who your new partner gets to know. We're talking about your friends, your family, your community.
Now this is fascinating. Just for dating relationships, look at the instability of meeting online, a massive 42% breakup rate. Now, compare that to being introduced by friends or meeting someone at a place of worship. The rates are just dramatically lower.
And when we look at marriage, okay, the breakup rates drop across the board, which makes sense. But the pattern, it is exactly the same. Meeting online still carries the highest risk. Meanwhile, meeting in places that are already embedded in your community, well, they show the highest stability. There's clearly some kind of protective effect going on there.
And there's a name for this. Scientists call it the social integration effect. It's pretty simple, right? When you meet through people you already know, your relationship has this built-in support system from day one. There's accountability. Your friends and family are invested in you, and that acts like a powerful glue.
So we have two huge clues. The specific platform matters, and your social network matters. But that leads us to the million-dollar question. Are these just early-day hiccups, or do these differences actually stick around for the long haul?
You know, you'd think that after a few years together, it really wouldn't matter how you met, right? You'd think that the initial circumstances would just fade away as you build a life together. But the long-term data, well, it tells a very, very different story.
This is the jaw dropper. This is what the researchers call the progressive divergence pattern, a fancy term for something pretty shocking. The survival gap between online and offline couples doesn't shrink over time. It grows. It literally more than doubles over 5 years. The way you start really seems to set the entire trajectory.
So the crucial takeaway is that those initial conditions, the platform you met on, how integrated you were with friends, they don't just fade away. They seem to create these tiny vulnerabilities that, a lot like interest on debt, just compound over time, leading to that widening gap we just saw.
Okay, I know that was a lot of data, but this isn't just an academic exercise. Let's translate all this science into some practical, actionable advice. Whether you're single and swiping right now, or you're already in a relationship that started online.
So if you're single, the data gives us a pretty clear 3-step playbook. First, choose your platform wisely. Prioritize the sites that are about genuine compatibility, not just a hot or not game. Second, integrate your worlds. As soon as it feels right, introduce them to your friends, your family. Bridge that social gap. And third, just slow down. Online dating can feel like it's on fast forward. Resist that pressure. Taking your time lets you see what's really there.
And hey, if you're already in a relationship that started online, please, this is not a reason to panic. It's a reason to be intentional, be proactive about building that shared community together. If you started out long distance, really focus on putting down local roots and constantly check in on the deep stuff, the values, the goals. That's what keeps a relationship going long after the initial spark. And this brings us to the final, and I think the most important takeaway from all this. After all this investigation, we've kind of discovered that the initial question, online versus offline, is actually the wrong question to be asking.
The real magic ingredients for success are these 3 things: a relationship that's built on real, deep compatibility, one that's supported by a strong community, and one that's developed at a healthy, intentional pace. And the best news is, these are things you can build and cultivate no matter where or how you met your partner.
So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. This isn't about deleting your apps or forcing introductions at parties. It's about understanding the real forces that build strong bonds. So, knowing what you know now, what's maybe one small, intentional thing you can do to make your own relationships even stronger? Thanks for joining us.